Star Wars, the expanded universe. A universe so vast that has over 17,000 characters from various different eras, from Dawn of the Jedi to the Old Republic, to the prequels all the way to the Legacy era. This is the tale of over 17,000 characters throughout the Star Wars universe. This is our first step to a much larger world that exists in the Star Wars universe. This is the story beyond the movies. This is the story of the Star Wars expanded universe. A universe loved by many. A universe that helped shape what this franchise is today. This is their story.
Hello everyone, Darcenovia here. This is my review on the Black Fleet Crisis Trilogy, which I talked about briefly in my New Jedi Order review. This is the Before the Storm, Shield of Lies, Tyrant's Test. Now, I had mixed feelings about this trilogy, to be honest, because I'm not the only one on this. I mean, a lot of fans of the expanded universe don't really care for this trilogy of novels. I felt like it being a trilogy was relatively unnecessary. And rather than have a good one book, maybe two, you just have one book that's worse than the other. The first book is okay. The second book is the worst in the trilogy. The third one, Jesus. The problem with these books in general is just the pacing is just awful. I could tell by when I was reading these, they were running out of ideas, honestly, at the time, because they didn't want to do an Imperial Warlord of the week. So they did something a little different. They had a race called Yovata. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And at the beginning of this book, Princess Leia, along with Nal Spar, trying to come to a peace agreement, or it appears to be that way. Well, it reveals that it isn't like that, and they want to be left alone. Now, this is very heavily political, these books, all of them are. But the problem with these books, which I'll get to that when I talk about Shield of Lies, is the pacing is just bad. I mean, there's a plot with Luke trying to find his mother, and he meets one of the Visari or Visai. I don't even fucking remember what they're called. I don't even remember what that chick's name was. But good God, did I hated that character. It's just this entire trilogy. You have basically three stories. Think about it: three plots. Luke trying to find his mother. Leia trying to handle the political situation on Coruscant and trying to deal with her responsibilities as chief of state, which, in my opinion, her part is the best part of the entire trilogy. Her subplot. Han, well, he doesn't really have a subplot. I'm sorry, my memory of this trilogy is kind of fuzzy, but it's just I don't remember every detail. But seriously, it's just this book is just kind of boring, honestly. Lando's portion could have been interesting if it was actually had his own book, but his part of the story just doesn't really contribute to the main part of the story. It doesn't. If you took his part out, nothing would have changed. And that's the problem. It seemed like Bantam at the time, they insisted on having every single series of novels in the post Return of the Jedi era be a trilogy, which is something that was a huge problem for me, considering it just doesn't give, you know, the novels much breathing room. Like, you can't do like one self-contained story in one novel, because there are times when I read the EU that I don't want to read a huge series. I just want to read one. And if you don't, you have to read this and all these basically to get Luke and Leia's character development that they get in this point. And I just didn't really like it. I mean, these were made at the time before, episode 1, 2, and 3 were released, so you didn't know about Padme, which I find this a waste. I mean, I would have preferred if they did this after the prequels were finished. That way they could have learned about their mother, like, at this point in the timeline, not in the Dark Nest trilogy, which we'll talk about way later. I don't know. There's some things that good concept about this book that were pretty much wasted. I mean, I like the idea of the Yavata, but they weren't really that interesting. And the Yos Yom Spar was just forgettable. And the parts that dealt with Luke were the worst. I mean, my God, hearing that lady bitch about every time Luke did something. It's like, Jesus, she's so fucking preachy. It got on my nerves when I was fucking reading this. That's like, oh, please, God, can we just get to the fucking main... Can we go back to Leia or Orlando's portion? Anything. But no! This one is the worst in the trilogy because the pacing is the worst. It's like, God. Jesus. It took me the longest to read these 3 books because they're just not that interesting. They do have their moments, but they're so far in between. The Tyrant's Test, which, in my opinion, didn't need to be as long as it was not that great either. I mean, some of the best parts of this book was with Chewbacca and his son. But that's about it. There isn't that many moments. The best moments in this one was the parts that involved Chewie and his family. It's just everything else was just boring. It just, the pacing was so bad. It's like, had they simply took Lando's portion out and made it his own solo adventure and have Luke and Leia's been 2 books instead of 3, we could have had a decent, duology, or maybe even 1 book. But it stretched everything out into fucking 3. Seriously, these books aren't really that great. They really aren't. And those who criticize like the Del Rey era novels, it's like there are a good chunk of these that are kind of mediocre. I mean, at this point in the post Return of the Jedi expanded universe, you had a lot of bad novels in a row. I haven't even read that the Cericia trilogy. I think that's what it's called. The Crystal Star. It's like, Jesus. It's just, these novels just aren't good. They really aren't. Would I recommend them? No. Honestly. Unless you are a completionist like myself and you must read everything in chronological order, you could skip it, honestly. I mean, they are referenced in the New Jedi Order series, but you don't need to read these to understand New Jedi Order. These novels... they're mediocre. I'd give it an okay rating. I mean, I don't really care for these novels, but they're not as bad as some others. Anyway, This is Darcenovia over and out. Sorry if this is short for me for this, but I'm not really enthused about talking about the Blackfeet Crisis for about 20 minutes. So yeah, have a nice day, everyone, and see you guys next time.